People are acting like 11-0 happens by accident or luck. 18-0, counting back to last year, happens by accident or luck. That doesn't play. I'm going to give a lot of props to our defensive coaches. That was a defensive game, and the defense showed up.
Complete rushing offense, and that's what this offense was. And UW just went ahead and held Oregon State to 3.7 yards a rush. Like, that's phenomenal.
We bring in Trice, ZTF, Voy, and Jacob Lane. We've talked about this before, but what it's doing is, it's first off, it's super fun to watch, but what it's doing is it's taking pressure off of Trice. We're moving Trice in different spots. And what it does too is each one of those guys, all four of them, are super twitchy guys. They get up and go. That's why I kind of call it the Zoom or the NASCAR package, because they can get on top of an offensive lineman super quick. And I think what that's doing is it's really showing like why you see our sack numbers jumping, why you see our TFL numbers jumping, because it's allowing us to just show different looks to the offensive line. And then we're bringing twists, then we're bringing loops. And man, that's kind of what is kind of my big stat of the night, was being able to get them off of the field on third downs, and why we were so successful with that.
I got my guys Izzo and Noah with me. Guys, we are 11-0 for the first time since 1991. You guys were little babies. I was a toddler. Tell me, what are our thoughts and feelings? Izzo, I heard you on Spaces, so I know you were having a good time Saturday. Talk to
me. I was a little turned up. But, we found a way to win a game that we honestly, at the end, I'm sure I'm with you guys. I was a little sketched out. When we were up by 2 and you give them the chance to kick that field goal to go up, and then the defense holds strong. I mean, there's a lot of things to clean up, of course, like the tackling again is a concern, but man, it's just like the resiliency you show in a game that is so cold and wet. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was surprised by just how sopping the field was. This is like a brand new season, you know? So
yeah, my girl thought it was snowing.
Yeah, it was a weird game in that way, but yeah, I mean, we knew that there were going to be some bad conditions. We didn't think that there would be a freaking hurricane heading into this game, but I guess it was. Kind of got better in the second half. But yeah, Penix showed himself to be the leader we know he is to be. Like, he just embodies everything. He doesn't even try. There's no forced leadership. Like, everything he does just exudes what you want from your quarterback in this position. And I think, despite the stat line, like, he was nails again, and he showed up for his squad. So yeah, I was a little worried at the beginning when you march down the field and then you give them their scripted drive at the beginning of the game and they just march right down. And that sideline dive was like, it kind of felt like why aren't guys trying to push him out, like get him out of bounds? And so that felt a little dicey, but at the end of the day, you can't do anything but smile at 11-0, man.
You really can't, man. It was crazy. We're welcoming back Noah. Noah had to take a week off. My guy was a little sick. Noah, I know you saw the game, man. What did you think?
Yeah, man, I'm back. I appreciate it. It was dude, I think Izzo said it, man. We found a way to win again. And it surely wasn't the prettiest game I've seen. But good Lord, man, it was exciting. And you know what, man? It was a little bit exhausting too. I think I went into that game 39 and came out of that game 50 plus. So man, I just know, man, Oregon State was 16-1 in their last 17 games at Reser Stadium. And a monsoon like that was something for the ages. And really that type of weather plays exactly into kind of who Oregon State is.
Oh yeah.
Fierce runners, always strong in the trenches. And man, I'll admit, man, I thought going into this game, the only way we're winning this game is if we score 35 plus. Dude, we won this game 22-20. 22-20 in a monsoon. It's like, I think Vegas got shredded when it comes to the total. I think everyone was on the over. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a track meet. And so, man, being able to win that type of game, to me, just solidifies why we're 11-0. They can't keep us out of the top 4 now. UW has the #1 strength of schedule in the country. I'm sorry, strength of resume in the country. And man, 11-0. Gonna CFP's tomorrow night. The ranking show. And let's get it, baby. Let's get it.
Oh my gosh.
And hey, this is right. Actually, and I want to say something really quick because I've been a little perturbed, a little ornery today, if you want, so to speak. People are acting like 11-0 happens by accident or luck. 18-0, counting back to last year, happens by accident or luck. That doesn't play. There ain't teams in college football that have ever won 11 games. Nonetheless, 18. So all you guys with your little YouTube channels and major sports channels who are talking about this like it's luck, you need to put some respect on UW's name. 11-0 does not happen by accident. You're talking about a coach that is 111 in his career. This is not an accident. We find ways to win like great teams do. And that's why we are 11-0. Not because, we struggled against Arizona State. Yes, we did. But guess what happened? We won that game. The games that we should lose if we're a regular team, we don't. We find a way to win because we have great leadership. We have a great team and the talent to do it. And I'll tell you what, our coaching is figuring it out. And I'm going to give a lot of props to our defensive coaches. That was a defensive game and the defense showed up. So guys, let's dive into the game. Noah, I'm going to start with you on this one. What were some of the major factors that led to this UW win?
Yeah, first off, man, I want to piggyback that, man. Winning is a skill, and we're damn good at it. And, dude, the Dogs are battle-tested. And, man, at the end of the day, we came into this game, and everyone talks about, what makes Oregon State, and you heard me kind of say this in my opening dialogue, what makes Oregon State who they are? And it's all about Oregon State's trenches, man. They're supposedly elite on the defensive side of the ball. I think they came into the game with 35 sacks. They have a very senior-laden offensive line led by the big All-American Talisi Fuaga. And I mean, hey, I don't know if you guys knew this. He's a local product, Mount Tahoma boy. Slipped through our fingers. But man, at the end of the night, I'll tell you what, the Dirt Dogs won the night, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Because they continue through that monsoon. Those kind of games are where kind of the big boys up front on both sides get to kind of wear the big boy pads, be a little sexy, it's gonna be one. It's gonna be one in the trenches. And that to me was like the determining factor, man. That set the tone, and it kind of set it all night. We'll talk a little bit about our keys to the game or players of the game, and dude, it's all about the trench dogs.
It really is, and I mean, there's so many different guys that you're going to be able to name off because on both sides of the ball, and I mean, I'll tell you what, our offensive line has become. They were so consistent that night, in a night that it's hard to keep your footing. It's hard to do that. They kept doing it. Izzo, when you were watching it, we talked about the line. What other things stood out to you that really gave UW this win and brought us to 11-0?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of players you can point out, that's for sure. Just overall grit in this type of game, and that trickles down from your staff, like we're talking about, is massive. And that's your coaches identifying leaders, giving voice to those leaders, and letting them, be who guides your team and guides the mentality of your entire team. So that kind of speaks volumes to just everybody in the organization. Like, this year has just been unbelievable. And in this game in particular, like what everybody was saying that they thought would be the potential downfall to the Huskies again, and again, it did not work, was our rushing defense against a complete rushing offense. And that's what this offense was. And UW just went ahead and held Oregon State to 3.7 yards a rush. Like, that's phenomenal. And you're doing that with banged up interior defensive linemen and Tuli and Fatui, and they played well. We haven't talked a lot about Fatui this year. He's been really hurt, but he played pretty strong. I mean, he only had 40 snaps. But when he came in, he spelled Tuli and the other guys pretty well. So I thought he kind of popped a little bit. It wasn't like outstanding, but we needed guys in the depth of the interior defensive line to have like decent games, and that's what seemed to happen here. Of course, you can't talk about this game without talking about Tuli Letuligasenoa. Like, he has been arguably the most important player on this defense this entire year.
A monster, an absolute monster.
100%, man. And so, he showed out again, and we'll get into it more. But Dom Hampton, Jabbar,
Jabbar had a game for the ages, bro.
Absolutely.
He really did.
And I'm sure we'll go into his play individually just because it was outstanding. But at this point, you look at what is quote unquote a secondary that had been lacking for this team a little bit, especially last year, to now you have Dom, who seems like a surefire NFL draft pick.
Oh yeah.
And like, I don't think that's in question. And now you're talking about Jabbar, who I think we can all agree this game was spotlighted. It was the most, I would assume, probably the most watched game of the week, maybe second, if anything. Now, his size is what scouts are going to kind of be like, I don't know about with him. But after this game, man, like, he's got to be on some guys' radars. Like, there was a couple plays where he closed the gap on his wide receiver that he was in coverage on, where you're just like, that looks like an NFL DB. And really does. We'll see how that goes. Like, there's a conversation to be had there, but I thought he played lights out. I mean, you asked the linebackers to step up, and all year we've talked about this. Like, the linebacking group seems to be the deepest group on this team, and they stepped up without their leader Alfonso Tuputala in this game. And Bruner showed out with the forced fumble. Like, they just answered the call, and there's. We can talk a little. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Eddie's play and stuff like that. But Bruner has just been the stalwart of the middle of that defense, and we can't highlight him enough. And so with injuries to Asa, with injuries to Alfonso, you had a Steen step up. You had Elijah Jackson had another pretty solid game in this game.
Oh yeah,
like we talked about
this.
Elijah
Jackson might have had one of his best games all year.
I think so too. And this wide receiver core for Oregon State is not as good as the other wide receiver cores that are out there. They're smaller, but they're fast. And so you saw some tackling stuff that could give you some head scratching moments. But all in all, this is not an easy game to have your depth pieces play so well in, and they did. They answered the call, man. So those are kind of the main takeaways that I have from this game at a high level.
Hey, Mike, let me play host for a second and kick this to you and Izzo. So first two drives, like Izzo mentioned, went chalk. They went touchdown, and then I think it went like punt, and then UW ends up getting that safety, over the head, and we get a safety and they kick it out. And then we go down, within a couple drives, and we score again. Mm-hmm. This is kind of my question, and this is what I want you guys to kind of talk about a little bit. I think that if the monsoon doesn't start, I think UW wins this game by 2 touchdowns, like easy. I really do.
Easy. There was go for it.
No. I was just gonna say the route that made it so obvious to me, especially, was the over route that Rome ran and caught like that 25-yard catch. I think it was either like the first or second drive. It was like I just looked at every single cornerback on that route. Dude, if that monsoon doesn't start, I promise you, we walk that team in Rooster.
Mm-hmm. You're 100% correct. One of the big things I noticed in leading up to the game when I was watching game film against Arizona and against Wazoo, who have kind of those spread concepts in their offense, that's what killed Oregon State. They were susceptible in the secondary, and they were getting beat deep, there were guys running open all over the place. You don't see Jalen Polk drop 4 passes. You don't see Jalen McMillan drop passes. Those plays happen. Those drives continue, and we score. We should have went up 29-10. Was it before half that I'm thinking?
Yep.
And they just didn't happen because the inclement weather really hurt us. And then it was compounded by Grubb likes to get pass heavy. And in a game like this, that kind of killed a few drives that slowed us down. So I think you're 100% correct. Is that what you think?
No, I think spot on. Like the drops. I mean, those are the big things. Like the missed field goal from Grady Gross. He's been nails all year, and that would have put you up. I think that was in the second half actually, but that game still would have been massively impacted by him hitting that field goal, and he just hooked it left a little bit. So yeah, there's a couple, not to switch gears entirely, but this is just a crazy stat. Kalen Deboer is 8-0 versus AP top 25 teams.
I saw that.
Unbelievable.
That's insane. Is there another coach who's even close to that? Like, you got to think somebody at Bama or Georgia, they're up there.
Gotta be close, yeah.
But man, this is a team that quote unquote the blue chip ratio is a major factor for them, and they just dominate against good teams, or not dominate. I mean, 6 of those 8 wins are 1 possession games.
Izzo, ask that question this way: is there a Power 5 coach in his first 2 years?
Yeah.
That is 8-0 in his first 8 games against top 25. Man. That's probably the better question, right? In his first 2 years.
Yeah, and the topic of conversation that keeps coming up, and this will be debated endlessly, is like the talent acquisition at the University of Washington. He's winning with Coach Pete's recruits. The recruiting at these positions that drive this team has not fallen off with Coach Deboer. It's Austin Mack. It's all these receivers, Jason Robinson. Name off whoever you want.
Justice Williams.
I mean, it's not going anywhere. So, you just think about like the roster construction bit, like beyond those positions, and it's very similar. We talked about this before. The interior defensive line this year was drawing a lot of the questions, but the 2 of the 3 top rated recruits on our team are interior defensive linemen. So, man, I'm just saying, like, if you don't think this is repeatable beyond this year as you enter the Big Ten, I got another, there's another thing coming to you. Like, that's not the right way to say it, but you're about to be surprised, man. Like, this team will win at the next level on the bigger stage as well as we enter into the Big Ten. Like, they're going to, man, because of how this team is constructed and how important passing offenses are in the landscape of college football.
This is very true. And I think what people also miss is even the major schools like the Alabamas and the Tennessees and all that of the world, they still take 3-star developmental kids and develop them into stars. That's what Kalen Deboer and this coaching staff has been able to do. And it's not like these guys are low 3-star guys. They're guys that are right on the fringe of being a 4-star guy, or maybe there's somebody that just flew under the radar. And then next thing you know, they're killing it. They're guys that you're like, how come he wasn't on my radar? I mean, look at Michael Penix. He was a 3-star kid, and he's one of the most prolific passers in college football the last 2 years, and he's setting all kinds of records for UW.
At this level, too, at that rank, we talked about this before, and this is kind of a known stat, but UW they sit generally between that number 25 and number 15-ish ranking of average rating per recruit, which is what we should be looking at as we evaluate classes, and that is still the same. And so man, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but if you think that this is not a repeatable formula, I think there is 8-0 versus the AP top 25 to argue with, and I think there is 18-0 in our last 18 games to argue with as well. So
and also goes, anybody that's also basing it off pure just recruits is basing it off old, out-of-date data, because the transfer portal has changed everything. You might have guys who came in as 3 stars, but when they transfer here, they're not. And so that overall ranking is going to start mattering way, way more than just what you're getting in high school. Because
it's also weighted by who they're getting offered. And so when UW acquires the commitment, are they going to continue to get offers, and how is that going to change the ratings as they would, so there's a lot of factors that go into, and unless you're in the top 5 to top 7, that range, this might not be the transitive property. I know we've been tossing that around a little bit, but that just the thinking of how your ratings are applicable to how you're going to finish is kind of jaded past that top 5 to 7. Like the range after that, from being top 8 to top 29 or 30, there's just all of these different factors that play into it being pretty friggin' inaccurate at a class rating standpoint, especially size of the class. But anyways.
Yeah. All right. So you guys, let's focus back on the game here. We're going to dive into each side of the ball, and I want to start with defense. And Noah, I'm going to start with you on this. I want to just read you this stat line real quick. Carson Bruner, 14 tackles, 1 pass deflect. Dominic Hampton, 11 tackles. Elijah Jackson, 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Ulafoshio, 7 tackles and a half a tackle for loss and a pass deflected. Trice, 6 tackles and a sack and another tackle for loss and a pass deflected. We have a lot of big stats, and the defense really showed up and came to play. What stuck out to you about our defense?
Yeah, first off, you got to kind of tip your hat to that Damian Martinez kid. Dude, we had a tall task with him. He's an absolute stud. He's a Sunday running back. He will be somebody's going to get him, and he's going to be an absolute workhorse for many years to come. We shut down Fenwick pretty well, which I was surprised with because he's a stud too. But man, that Damian Martinez, everything about him is beautiful. Looking at kind of what we did, we kind of allowed DJ. Or at least we wanted DJ to kind of be able to throw the ball. If we're going to get beat, have them beat us that way. Dude, a big stat that I saw was, Oregon State was only 3 of 12 on third down.
Yeah. Wow.
25% on third down. And, I mean, just to put that in context, on an average over a year, 25% would literally be bottom 5 in the country. I mean, if you can hold third down efficiency to that, I mean, that's huge. Once again, I've said this, we'll talk about it. We always do. When Mish plays that free safety, it's going to hurt us a little bit up front because Mish is an elite in the box tackler. And and you saw that. Luckily, we had Tuli coming back. Luckily, Carson Bruner played maybe the second best game of his career. I know he had a great game 2 years ago as well, but I mean, he was all over the field making plays, making pass deflections. He's the one that deflected that ball, that Muhammad pick, one of Muhammad's picks. So I mean, dude, we've kind of built this defense, as we know, kind of from the back up front. But one thing I want to talk real quick. Have you guys noticed this new and improved Zoom / NASCAR package we're putting together?
Yep.
Dude, yep.
They took our advice. They took our advice.
Dude, so it took a couple games, maybe 6 or 7 games, but I think the coaches saw enough from Jacob Lane, the true freshman, and was like, all right, man, this boy's ready to go. And on those, dude, we bring in Trice, ZTF, Voy, and Jacob Lane. We've talked about this before, but what it's doing is it's super fun to watch, but what it's doing is it's taking pressure off of Trice. We're moving Trice in different spots. And what it does too is each one of those guys, all 4 of them are super twitchy guys. They get up and go. That's why I kind of call it the Zoom or the NASCAR package, because they can get on top of an offensive lineman super quick. And I think what that's doing is it's really showing why you see our sack numbers jumping, why you see our TFL numbers jumping, because it's allowing us to just show different looks to the offensive line. And then we're bringing twists, then we're bringing loops. And man, that's kind of what is kind of my big stat of the night, was being able to get them off of the field on third downs and why we were so successful with that.
Yep. And I think that, remember how you were talking at the beginning of the year about just trying to get a couple more turnovers a game? I think we're at 13 interceptions on the season. We've almost doubled our number from last year. I think we had 7 last year.
Yep.
And we might not have as many sacks, but I think that pressure that we're getting up front from Boy, from ZTF, from Braylon, and now Jacob Lane is showing up there in those numbers. Yeah, I was about to say, Izzo, I wanted to talk to you about the linebacker play, because I know it's something that we've really talked about is, Eddie always shows up. He seems to be that hard-nosed guy. Losing Tupatala hurt, but, man, Carson Bruner steps in, and he stuffs so much of the run game, I mean, literally by himself, where if you don't make the tackle, there's nothing but green in front of the running back. How do you feel about the linebacker play on Saturday?
I mean, just like what we had talked about, that depth, the depth at that spot, if you're asking so much of that group, that if you take an injury and let's say our Braylon Trice was in the middle of this defense and we had maybe some questionable depth this would be a game that would be a trap for UW, considering the strength of the running backs in this offense for Oregon State. And I mean, Bruner has done everything that you've asked of him beyond even just in play, linebacking play on the defense side of the ball. He's proven himself up, through the special teams committee, going through that his first couple of years. Again, this is another 3-star kid that looks like he can play on Sundays potentially at the end of his career. And
so
between him and Raylan and Eddie and Alfonso, like we've talked about, we have an embarrassment of riches. And especially, man, in the randomness of that position where you're asked to not only stop guys on the run, but make a pass deflection that gets picked off by Jabbar. And I think that was his pass deflection. I think that was Carson's pass deflection, if I remember correctly.
He had 2 picks, so.
Yeah. So, man, I mean, I could go on for days, but just like we talk about leadership and we talk about doing that by your play and that is what Carson seems like to me. There's many players on the interior front 7 that do this, but Carson has really answered the call in terms of that leadership step up, that secondary leadership, the leader that steps up to the plate. I'm excited about him for the future too, man.
Is he a junior? Is he a junior?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so.
Do you know that off the top of your head?
Wait, who?
Bruner.
Oh yeah, Bruner has another year.
Okay, good. I know Jabbar has another year as well, and I kind of want to move it. I'm going to talk to you about this one. Kind of looking back at the back end of our defense, we talked about Mish, but Jabbar had 4 pass breakups and then the 2 interceptions, the fumble recovery as well. That Bruner had forced that fumble. What a big play that was. Yeah. But if you look at how Elijah Jackson played, he stuck his nose in it the whole game. And then Esteen showed up. I mean, I know it's not easy to play in that weather, but he was there and he had a couple touchdown saving tackles. What did you think about how the back end played?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a day like Jabbar Muhammad, I think the back end is pretty solidified just from that. I mean, I was never so much worried in a game like that on the back end, but being able, like I talked about, to bring a Husky position, spell Mish, have him come up front with the Steen. The Steen was thrown right into the gauntlet. I mean, a top 10, top 11 type game. All the college football playoff, on the line in games like that. They showed out. Elijah Jackson and Thad Dixon also, man. They've steadily, game by game by game, have just got better. And I think it's pretty, a known commodity with Jabbar Muhammad. But Jackson and Dixon have kind of just been like, they've been getting picked on here, they've been getting picked on there. But slowly but surely, man, they're making plays. Elijah Jackson came up multiple times to help on Damian Martinez. And I think we're going to need that, especially as we get healthy, man. When we get Cam Fab, when we get Asa back, dude, and everyone kind of gets in their normal roles, having that, just experience on the edges of going into 12, 13 games now, playing that extra Pac-12 championship game, it's going to help a lot, as we move forward.
Yeah. I've started to notice Jackson becoming a little bit more sure on the tackling. What's crazy? I said this when I was watching the game. It kind of reminded me of early Mish. Like early Mish had some problems with the coverage, especially deep, but he started showing that ability to tackle early. And now Jackson's starting to do something similar. You're starting to see him make tackles he was missing at the beginning of the year, and he's becoming a little bit more hard-nosed. And I wonder if that is eventually a role he's going to take over, because he does have kind of an issue getting beat deep every once in a while.
This was a tough game to judge, too, on the tackling side. I'll just say that. Everybody was slippery. Like, I didn't think we tackled super great as a team in this game, but go ahead, Noah. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to go. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's funny how our minds think alike. I mean, we had multiple text messages after that game. Like, players were saying, dude, that's like the worst field conditions I played in. And you could see it in the game. I think I texted Izzo, and I think I talked about it on Spaces that night, is like when guys were making their breaks, usually – wide receivers or the corners, they'd come out of their breaks and be full go, ready to go. Everything was like super choppy Like it almost was like it's like the very first snow, you have,
Yeah.
in December. It's like you don't really know you're feeling yet. So you make that turn and everything's kind of slow and choppy. That's the way it was. And for guys to be able to kind of make some of those impactful plays that they did, dude, that's why that's why we won 22-20 in a game that, like I said, I thought was going to be like a 35 plus point game to win. So
yep, that's very true. That's very true. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball? Because I'm getting ready to switch over to the other side of the ball.
Go for it. Let's do it.
All right. So the offense, which people have been talking about all year, we got this high-flying offense. Our receivers are all of that. We had a rough game offensively in the passing game specifically. Across the board in the offense, we had a rough game. I was going to pull this out because I think it's the first time it's happened since we've had Penix here. In this game, only 2 wide receivers caught balls. And besides Roma Dunze, there was only 1 catch by Giles Jackson. You had Westy with 4 catches for 43. Odunze had 7 for 106 and the 2 touchdowns. He's an absolute beast. But Giles Jackson had 1 for 10, and then Tybo Rogers 1 for 3, and that is it. We still found a way to come out. Penix still walks out of this game with 3 touchdowns, even though he only threw for 162 yards. I think personally, this has to be really focused on what the offensive line did. Izzo, when you were watching our offense, not much was working, but for what was the thing that stuck out to you?
Like you'd said, this game is hampered by drops. Like that doesn't just hurt you because you have the drops and now Mike's completion percentage drops a little bit. It's the plays that come after statistically. I think I think we ended this game with like a 23-minute time of possession versus their 37, which is got to be the biggest discrepancy for UW this entire year. So
22 to 37.
Yeah. The other thing too that hampers statistics is that in the big run that was broke out by Dylan Johnson, he fumbled that ball. That's we knock on wood. It was
red zone turnovers again, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, red zone turnovers. He ran it into the runs, red zone on like a 50-yard broken play. But he that was the first one of his career, first fumble of his career. So I'm not going to knock on that too hard. I thought it was a great play by the Oregon State defender. But to what you let off with, Mike, like that's interesting, about how this was. Well, I guess it's indicative of how this game played. Like UW wanted to go to their sure-handed options, given that Polk had slippery hands and things like that. I think Westy had a couple catches, if I'm not mistaken.
4 for 43.
4 for 4. Okay. So yeah. I'm not going to take too much away from that. There's not a ton to take away, I think, offensively, other than that your offensive line absolutely showed up again. Now, I'll talk about this. I'll talk about it now, just because he's not my offensive player of the game. But Juice, since returning, has been such a massive piece for this offense to operate.
100%.
Like Julius Buelow, who we're talking about for those who don't know Juice.
Yeah.
He looks like a tackle. He's 6'6", 6'7". He's 320 pounds, but he makes such a difference on the interior offensive line. I think he graded out per PFF with like an 87.2, which is top 10 at the position in the country, which is the best offensive line play from any offensive lineman on our team this game. He just looked great, man. And that whole group up front looks like a cohesive unit when he's in the game. So that was the big takeaway for me, is that this is a defensive line that had 36 sacks on the year. Zip.
Hey, that I'll tell you what, I'm going to build off your point because you're completely right. That offensive line dominated on that Dylan Johnson run. If you watch that, literally that whole right side of the line washes everybody down. Then you see Parker Brailsford out at the second level, opening everything up for that to break away and be a touchdown. So that was huge. I was looking at the numbers. We averaged 4.4 yards a carry, but DJ averaged 5.6. Michael Penix averaged 7.3. He ran the ball 3 times. 2 of them were first downs, and 1 was a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's how big. That's how big the running game was.
This is the last point I'll make on this is that this is a game where 2 sacks from that defensive line, you lose the game.
You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. But I want to continue on with this running game. Noah, when you were watching, because DJ still had a big game. He had 16 carries for 89 yards. He didn't get in the end zone, even though he was so close. I was watching the guy chase him down. I was like, oh, he doesn't see him. Oh, he doesn't see him. Mm-hmm. And then it was the fumble. But the running back play, he's going to hit 1,000. He's 120 yards away from 1,000 yards right now. What do you think about DJ right now compared to what you thought was going to happen at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And Izzo, just so you know, since Juice has been back, the DJ's averaging 150 a game.
That's crazy.
It is. I mean, like, and Izzo knows more than anybody. Dude, I was like the person that said 3 years ago, there's absolutely no way Juice would ever see the field. Mm-hmm. And I think I talked about this in an earlier podcast. Dude, for me, like, that is such a tip to the cap of, like, someone who was so raw, coming out of Hawaii, but just stayed with his craft and just has developed into an absolute freaking mauler, mm-hmm. rush blocker, run blocking, and mm-hmm. pass blocking. I mean, dude, he can do it all, and that's what makes our offensive line so elite. Is that we have players that can do both facets of the game, right? But going back to your question. What makes Dylan Johnson so special? He's got a little bit of, and people might laugh at this, but he's got a little bit of Marshawn Lynch in him.
Oh yeah,
and I mean that by look at when he runs, very wide base, and that's why he's very hard to bring down. He never falls back. He's always falling forward. He kind of got that Chris Polk in him too. He's always mm-hmm. getting that extra 1, 2, 3 yards.
Chris Polk is a great comp.
And he's heavy, bro. He's 218, 220, and he's thick. And what was funny, when he was coming out of Mississippi State, if you remember, rest in peace, Coach Leach, but Coach Leach was mad at him because he wasn't tough enough. Dude, if Dylan Johnson isn't tough enough,
yeah,
I don't know what tough is, man. And I feel like you know what I mean. And it's dude, he's become This is the best way I'll explain it, and I'll get off my little Dylan Johnson run here. He's gone from like a lunch pail guy just doing his job to like a bona fide like
the star,
elite star. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going.
Home run hitting power. Yeah,
he is, and I never would have thought that. That's a great point. I never would have looked at him and be like, oh, he's a home run guy, dude. He's got at least 4 or 5 like 45, 50-yard runs. Mm-hmm. I think something like that. Okay. I mean, like I never would have thought that.
So, I think he had 3 alone in USC game 2 or 3.
Okay, well that helps. Yeah.
But still, your point isn't lost, man. Like he is so much of our team. When I was thinking about this, I didn't want to go too off of a tangent, but there's so many chips on the shoulders of our players, man. And mm-hmm. like that was all week. I was tweeting about just like this. They don't believe in you. They don't. What's the freaking what's his name? DJ Khaled. They don't believe in us, man. I mean,
hey, you're right though. You're seeing it come out in the play because they're playing like they have a chip on their shoulder. And somebody like DJ, who I think it's obvious now, he was not being utilized right every single place that he's gone, and it wasn't being utilized right until halfway through this season.
Absolutely.
And now we see what he really is. And one of the things that I've been waiting for since we had Myles Gaskin is a running back that's patient, that waits for that hole when he needs to, or busts right through it when he has to. And I feel like DJ shows a lot of that patience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was like a running joke in our house with that video clip of Tom Brady at that like TED Talk where he's like, he's like,
so good.
What did they look like? Did they say anything bad about me at all? Like, you're just going off on that.
Izzo, to your point though, every week when away games, when they're getting on the bus and then getting on the plane, Casey Byers always does that cool little like video clip of like, yo, what's up? You know, the guys are saying what's up to the camera. And what did Mike say this week? He was like,
being an underdog.
I love being an underdog. He's like, underdog? I love being an underdog. And dude, I want to say this real quick before we get off the offense. Mike kind of has that Tom Brady like thing in his brain, like, oh, I want to make every little thing about them. I want to hate everything about them.
Mhm.
And you saw that kind of come out in that last play. So if that last play was like a thing of beauty, man. They lined up. Yep, exactly. They lined up.
Bam.
Dude, they motion into the bunch, into the right side. And it looks like, and everybody on the field, you could see the whole Oregon State defense. They all shifted over there. It's going to go to Jeremy Bernard. We're going to run a screen on 4th and 3. We're either going to get it or we're not. And instead, you know, big cojones, Michael Penix, comes up to the line, looks at like in his normal shotgun, looks to the right, realizes, dude, good Lord, dude, the whole defense is over there. Let me just throw a freaking seed, absolute rip shot to back shoulder right to Mike Penix, right to his brother, and says, dude, my partner in crime, we about to do this together. You know, it's like, dude, that to me, you talk about Heisman moments. We haven't talked about Heisman. Everyone wants to talk about Jalen Daniels. Everybody wants to talk about Jaden Daniels. Everyone wants to talk about Bo Nix. Dude, they're great quarterbacks, man. I promise you, in the games that we've played, in the gauntlet that we've gone through, no one has more Heisman moments, and no one means more to his team than Michael Penix. 100%. So I hope every voter knows that. I hope every voter watches our games and sees that Michael Penix, he is the man. He is the Heisman for 2023. And I just pray that they're watching these games because he is that guy.
I feel like you needed to put the glasses on for that one because that was you got me all pumped, bro. I'm like, I got
these glasses too.
All right, baby. I mean, I don't need to run it back, but I'm just telling you, man, Michael Penix has more Heisman moments than anybody. And at the end of the day, he should be your 2023 Heisman with the gauntlet that UW had to go through. There you go, baby.
Brat. All right. So real quick before we get off the offense, we got to really quick talk about Rome. Rome, first of all, he's got better numbers than Marvin Harrison Jr. I know he might have one less touchdown, but he's got more catches, more yards. You know who actually has better stats than both those guys? It's Troy Franklin, which is crazy to say, but it's true. He's got better stats than both those guys.
Troy should have been a dog.
He really should have been. Imagine him in Rome with Penix. Woo! But I mean, Rome is an absolute beast who makes plays whenever we need them. If there's a guy that we have to go to, he's our closer. He is literally our closer. And I'm so happy he chose to come to UW and stay at UW.
Dude, the closer? Dude, that's kind of naughty, bro. That's bro. Dude, get Tommy Trump. What's that guy that DJ Tommy Trumpets or whatever? You know, the closer for the Mariners. He runs out to that. Oh yeah. Dude, you should make a little video up and have that music in the background. That'd be sick for Rome.
Maybe I will, but he really is, and I'll tell you what, the biggest players show up at the biggest moments, and Rome has done that, especially when his brothers were having such a hard time catching the ball, and the wide receivers were it was a tough game for them. Toughest game I've seen for our receivers under Kalen Deboer, and so hopefully we get that cleaned up. Let's talk about our players of the game or plays of the game. And we'll start on the defensive side. Noah, I'll stick with you on this. Who was your player or play of the game, or do you have one of each from Saturday?
Yeah, man. No, I mean, the play of the game, dude, I don't know if I have a play of the game, but I will say this. The player of the game, his statistics aren't going to stand out. His you know, you're not going to probably find him on the score sheet or the stat sheet. But, man, Tuli is my defensive player of the game. And maybe I got a little, sweet spot, heart spot for the D lineman. But, man, dude, he's just so disruptive up front. And he does everything. He does all the dirty work. He gets into gaps. He makes Damian Martinez cut back. and here comes all his brothers to make a tackle. But man, he's just everything you ask for in a defensive lineman, man. And I want to say this. This is one thing too about Tuli, and I think him being back, he exudes this type of pressure on the other D linemen. What have I been saying? If you can't get home, what do you need to do? Get your freaking hands up, right? Dude, I think we had 3 or 4 batted balls on Saturday night.
Yeah, MJ Ale.
Yep, MJ Ale had one. I think Trice had one. Tuli had one. And I think somebody else had one. I mean, but I'm just saying, it disrupts the flow of the offense when you get a batted ball like that. And just Tuli's presence, man. I'm telling you, I said it. He's a stalwart. He commands a double team, and I almost said something I shouldn't have said. He messes up the run. He messes up the run game bad, man. Yeah, I mean so he gets my dirt dog sticker, man.
And it was conspicuous. It wasn't like something you don't see. If you watch that game, you saw 91 in the backfield making plays. Izzo, who was your defensive player of the game?
Is a 0.0 passer rating allowed? Good.
Oh, yeah, slightly good. Yeah.
Just a quick question. I mean, 6 targets, no catches, 3 PBUs, 2 picks, a fumble recovery. Jabbar put himself on the map for draft type player, whether or not that's this year or next. He's the stud of this game, man. I don't think you need to say much more. I mean, like I'd said before, there's a couple plays. I tweeted out just in reaction at one play during the game where the receiver had 4 or 5 yards of separation. Like, I don't know if it was broken coverage or just a clean route, but Jabbar closed the gap right away, man. And we've been waiting to see that from these defensive backs. It's like, do you guys have the burst to close the gap immediately? And Jabbar did that. And man, I just love seeing what he's doing because, like, you know, he's the little guy. He's the guy that transferred from Oklahoma State. We talked about this when he transferred, that like on their boards, on the Oklahoma State boards, they were like, this was arguably the best cornerback acquisition in this year's, like that year's portal. And they were really not happy about losing him at all. And so kudos to him, and also kudos to the staff for knowing that's your guy and going and freaking getting him. So Courtney, you know, Juice, hats off. Morrell, hats off to going and finding that kid, because man, he showed up for you. He arguably won this game for you. And so he's my guy.
I think you're 100% correct, because, you know, last year after Perryman came in here and he was hurt most of the year, I was very hesitant about who they're bringing in and their ability to pick a guy. Now it makes me believe that Perryman really was hurt the whole year, and because Jabbar has been a stud. For me, though, I'm going to give it's going to be a split between Carson Bruner and Braylon Trice. I think Bruner was everywhere making tackles and saved the day, and we talked about him earlier. But Braylon Trice was an absolute wrecking ball. Whether he was coming up the middle or around the edge, a lot of those interceptions that you saw DJ throw were because Trice was forcing him out or forcing him to make a bad throw. And some of them weren't even interceptions. Some of them were bad passes that went incomplete. And so
that's against the first round tackle.
Exactly. And so I think I was kind of worried that Trice might have been playing himself out of getting drafted earlier this year because he just wasn't showing up. The last 6-7 games, he's been so conspicuous that he might only end with 5 or 6 sacks. But when you see the pressures and what he's bringing, it's hard not to love the dude. All right, let's switch to the offensive side. And Izzo, I'll stick with you on this one. Who stuck out for you on the offense? Who gets your game ball?
I mean, we talked a little bit about it's hard for me to not give it to Julius Buelow, but you know, I'm gonna have a hard time picking outside of the. I mean, this is kind of a cop out, but I don't care. Again, I'm gonna give it to the entire offensive line, because this was a game that you were supposed to lose that battle, or at least like the national pundits would have had you believing that maybe they would lose this battle against that defensive line, or that it was a question mark for this game. But they to only give up a 1 tackle for loss, or maybe it was 2 tackle for losses and no sacks. I mean, I don't need to expand any further on that. This offensive line is just playing out of their minds. And so I'm going to give it to them. I'd take this offensive line against any defensive line in the country, straight up.
One of my favorite offensive lines ever at UW since I've been a UW fan.
The Parker, the context of inserting a freshman center who rotates in the middle, picks up where guys are injured, and just dominates against NFL talent. Like, you pick your poison. Pick who you want to shout out. Like, all of them have been phenomenal, and especially in this game.
He's like Mighty Mouse amongst all these trees that he's sitting next to. Because Buelow is actually 6'9". That was what it says on the thing. And then Kalepo's 6'6". So you got this guy that's 6'2" sitting amongst them. That's pretty crazy. Noah, who gets your game ball on the offensive side?
Yep. It's got to go to Rome.
100%.
Man. In a night where all the other wide receivers couldn't catch the ball, man, they couldn't feel their hands. I heard guys saying on the sidelines, like, dude, you're sitting out there for 5 minutes and you can't even feel your fingertips, you know? Dude, Rome Odunze comes through, man. Mr. Reliable, Mr. Pac-12, Mr. All-American. Man, dude, he says, get on my back and I'll lead you out of this monsoon. I'll lead you out of the Orange Sea and I'll take you into the promised land, baby.
Yep.
7 for 106, 2 tutties. Dude, Mr. Rome Odunze, you get my ball, dude.
Yep. And
dude,
for me,
last thing. He cooked on that touchdown, that first touchdown.
Oh my God.
No one had I don't care what NFL I mean, there's probably a handful, but like nobody in college football has a chance in hell on that.
Was the first one the deep shot, or was the first one like that move where it's like that little move?
It was the move. Yeah.
Filthy.
Yeah. Hey, and real quick to all you Beaver fans, and one specifically on Twitter, stop crying and calling it a push off. They were hand fighting you, baby. Watch the play. I'm sorry your freshman corner could not take one of the best receivers in college football. He's a freshman corner. It happens. You guys will be all right. You guys are really good. Just not that day. For me, game ball goes to Michael Penix Jr. since you gave it to Rome. Still had they said he had his worst game at UW and he still had 3 touchdowns. He showed that his legs could be utilized to get them big plays when they need them. Like I said, 3 rushes, 2 for first downs, 1 for a touchdown. Michael Penix is the best quarterback I've ever seen at UW. And I've been here for Brunell, Heward, Tuli, Jake Locker, Jake Browning, Keith Price. Yeah. I even was there during the horrible Rowney Fouch years. So I'm going to give it to Michael Penix. Man, I'm so glad you came to UW. You're the man. All right. As we move on, we're going to move on to one of our important areas because I feel like the UW coaching staff watches our show and takes our advice. Areas for improvement. Totally. Areas for improvement. KDB, we got you. Noah, what do you see as an area for improvement that you'd like to see UW do something, change, adjust?
Yeah. I feel like we've watched a lot of Apple Cups over the years. And I mean, this is an improvement I want to see implemented this week. I think Dickert and those boys know, like, dude, they're not going to be able to play with our wide receivers. They're going to have some sort of like cloud coverage, bracket type defense. And I think I can see this defense doing a little bit what Jed Fitch in Arizona did. They want to keep everything in front of us, and they're just going to go, hopefully we're bend, don't break. Hopefully we can get a stop down in the red zone. And so the improvement I want to see is I want to see Mike. Dude, Mike, just take the shallow stuff, brother. Just take it. We don't need to go deep all game. We don't need dude, take it. I'm telling you, they're gonna want to run deep high safety like everybody else has tried to run against us. Take the stuff intermediate. Let Germ go off. Let Jalen McMillan get a couple catches, kind of get back in a rhythm. Let Jalen Polk make a couple nice, 15-yard comebacks, and let's just go from there.
Okay, I agree. I think taking what's given has been something that has led to success this year. Izzo.
Yeah, on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm sure we'll go to defense after this, but on the offensive side of the ball, it's the penalties.
God.
and maybe you can say that about both sides, to be honest with you, but you just got to shore things up. And again, we've talked about it multiple weeks in a row now, or I've brought it up. We just, once we get to the point of the Pac-12 championship, assuming that's either, it's Arizona or Oregon, pick your poison. You can't shoot yourself in the foot in those games. And it has a big, it is a big factor as to why the last 7 or 8 games have been 1 possession games, is because we shoot ourselves in the foot and end drives early in this way. And so, it's not just, it tends to not be receivers on OPIs. I think we all know it has to do with holds. So just make sure, and maybe that plays into why this team hasn't given up any sacks, is like they're so aggressive. But I think some of this can get shored up, and I'd like to hope that we don't have 7 penalties on offense, or 5 holds or whatever it is, as we play Oregon or Arizona, and then we play a bowl game against a top 15 opponent. Like you have to shore that up, obviously.
Yeah, I think for me, running the ball more on first down, and I know we do run a lot on first down, but I know we literally have a Corvette, and Ryan Grubb likes to put his foot on the gas and throw to these receivers and make it happen. I think, especially against a team like Wazoo, where we're going to be bigger, we're going to be stronger, running on first down is going to make those guys bring their DBs up into the box, because that's the only way they're going to be able to stop us. And that's going to open up so much more down the field as we go on. And with teams like Wazoo, where we can take advantage of that, I think that's what I would like to see the offense do. All right, let's move to the defense. Izzo, I'm going to stick with you on this one. Where do you want to see places for improvement on the D?
Yeah, I know this was not a great game to judge this, but you can still see it regardless of if the running backs are slippery or whatever it is. We got to tackle better. We now are sitting PFF graded out as the 118th team out of 133 in tackling. And that's just got to get shored up, man. Like, we say bend, don't break, and that's the type of defense that we want to play, because you have to score with us, like we've talked about. But if you can't, you need to just get wrapped up. There's so many, I just don't, when we watch these games, there's running back breaking off to the edge, and it's one-on-one with DB, and or a linebacker for that matter, who the running back is faster than, and I just don't have any confidence we're making the tackle on that first attempt. Outside of it, honestly, some of our DBs have done that. Mish brings them down. Like Mish, this is like excluding Mish and Dom, kind of. Yeah, because those guys, you see them on the outside, you're like, Dom's making this tackle. But some of the other guys, man, we just need to shore it up. Like, no one person in particular, but just as a group, the hand tackles, let's be stronger. Let's get some jersey. Like, easier said than done, but something has to give, because we can't be tackling this poorly. Okay.
Noah, what do you got?
Yeah, this was actually my 2 weeks ago was my, where can we improve? And I'm just going to come back to it, because I still think it's a factor, and it's getting healthy, man. You saw us get Tuli back, 2 weeks ago. Now I want to see this coming week. Get him off his 50% snap count, or whatever that is. I want to see him go 70-75% of the snaps. And I want to get Cam Fab and Asa back as well. I don't think that'll be this week with Asa, but I just don't think people realize how integral and important it is to get Mish out of that free safety role, because he's the heartbeat of this defense when it comes to him up front and in the box. And dude, he's elite in tackling. And so that's kind of my areas of improvement. If you can get healthy, I think it allows us to be better tacklers, because it puts the players in the proper positions where they can feel confident, and they can kind of really show where their talent shines. So that's kind of to use Izzo's point of a tackle better. I think that should happen if we could just get some of these guys back in their proper position.
For sure.
I agree 100%.
Alfonso and Asa being back and healthy, that's going to definitely impact your tackling. And That's a good call. I actually didn't notice that. Tuli only played 34 snaps in this game.
Yeah. And if I'm going to say I want to see an area of improvement, is Tuli can't be the only guy playing that role, like that big run stuffer. I really want to see a guy like Jacob Bandis be able to be plugged in when Tuli is down, because Tuli got hurt and came back in the game against Oregon State. And I think a guy like Bandis has all the tools to do the same kind of thing. I just want to see him do it more consistently. That would be because I agree. My point would have been tackling, because I agree you guys are 100% right on tackling. But I want to see the interior of the defensive line, besides just Tuli, be able to step up and be that guy that just disrupts the middle, because it makes every single guy on our defense better. And it's very obvious, because when Tuli's on the field, it reminds me of like a Vita Vea, or I don't know if you guys remember Larry Triplett from back in the day. They're just disruptors, and it changes the game.
Here's who the top 4 guys who graded out the highest against Oregon State in tackling. And it's kind of surprising. One of them is not surprising. Dom Hampton was top 4. That's not surprising. The other 3, McEllisteen, number 1.
Wow.
Number 2, ZTF. Number 3, Sakai.
Okay. Hey, Sakai, like I don't know if was it you, Izzo, or Noah that was talking so big about Sakai. Sakai is, man, he might not show up a lot, but he always gets his job done, especially when it comes to holding the edge on running plays. And I don't think he gets a lot of love for it, but now I've been really focusing on him. You guys are 100% right. He's definitely big time when it comes to that. And I'd be curious to see on a pass rushing level what happens if you slide him inside.
So he what and this is just a takeaway, and then Noah, I know you got something to say about this too. Sakai does everything like just good. Like he does everything pretty well. You can rely upon him in snaps. He played 51 snaps in this game. He does what's asked of him. And if it's gonna be hard to keep him off the field if he tackles as well. Bottom line.
Yep. Yeah, well, especially against running teams.
What I was gonna say. One thing that Sakai does very well is he sets the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And Izzo knows this. Dude, I one thing about being able to set the edge. That's why our defenses were so good later on when we had players and under Coach Kwiatkowski, was we had players like Ryan Bowman who did the dirty stuff, set the edge, allowed the linebackers to flow over top. And man, I'm telling you, having people like Sakai that's willing to get in and do the dirty stuff, you're going to see that same thing from Zach Durfee. Zach Durfee's willing to get in and do the dirty stuff too. And so, dude, those types of players on your team, they're must-haves. You know who you don't see that with? Okay, I'm going to take a shot here. You don't see that at USC, and that's the freaking problem. Everybody wants to be the showstopper. Everybody wants to be the LA Lights big-time superstar. And the problem with that is not everybody can do that. And so if you don't have those players who are saying, I can be a role guy, I can be a lunch pail guy, and guess what? I'm going to be that, and I'm going to kick your ass at it and be elite at that. That's why defenses usually aren't very good, is because nobody wants to buy into the system.
That's real. That's so real. And I think that all comes back to what the coaching staff does. I hear a lot of people talking about Morrell and Inge and Schmidt and stuff like that. And it's like, you're starting to see these guys are in position a lot. And now they're starting to really make the plays. And I think, like we were talking last week about, hey, just make those adjustments a little bit earlier. I think we saw that this week where they were a little quicker on the adjustments and you saw it really make a difference. And we have those guys who do the dirt work. They do the work that's needed for our stars to be able to make the plays. So, all right. Is there anything else you guys want to get on before we move on? All right.
No, way to answer. Wait, before we get into the Apple Cup, and we'll release that episode tomorrow. I'll just say this: this team played with a chip on their shoulder, and I loved hearing, various, through the grapevine that coaches were driving that home, and they answered the call, especially on defense. Man, you guys did what you needed to do in this game. We're talking about tackling. We're talking about these things in areas of improvement. You guys freaking answered the call. Tip of the freaking cap, man. Nobody respects you. They still don't respect you. They have to. They have to this week because of your resume. Continue to drive home the point that you are the best team in this country. Don't come up short, man. Like, in terms of effort, whatever happens on the field happens on the field, but give it your freaking all. You guys did that in this game. Mike did it. Everybody did it, man. And I'm freaking proud. Like, proud to be a Husky after watching that football game.
Hey, you're 100% right. I was saying this last year. I'd never seen 11-win team be so disrespected. I've never seen an undefeated team be treated so bad. I mean, I don't know how many people I've seen in the media talk about Oregon or Texas or even Florida State. These teams that, honestly, if you watch them play, they are not the same caliber as UW. Oregon might be because Oregon's playing really, really good football right now, but they get so much more love, like they've done so much more, and they haven't. They've been more flashes in the pan as opposed to a team that's won 18 straight games, or 21 or 22 of the last 25 or whatever the number is. They don't get treated like that, and I think that's going to keep the momentum going as we move forward. So, real quick, the Dubbed Up podcast is brought to you by Auto Presents. Everything you need for Seattle hip hop, whether it's shows, music, videos, you can check at autogang.com. Also, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, or comment buttons, and go join our Discord. The Discord is the #1 spot for Washington Husky information when it comes to football and basketball, because it is Husky Hoops time right now as well. It's free to join, but just for $8 a month, you can go in, get all the inside information and everything you need to know before it hits the news in the Discord. The link is down in the bio. Like I said, Izzo, Noah, and all the other guys from Husky Twitter that really help add into what the Discord is, make that the most rich spot for information when it comes to Husky sports. So like I said, go click that link before you do anything else, before you change the channel. Do that. Trust me, it's a gift from me and my guys to you.